Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Happy Tuesday. Today is May 27th. Hope everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. Gonna dive into Greg Sankey and his comments earlier at the SEC conference meetings. But before I dive into that, I just want to remind everybody that this show, it's all about you. We want to hear whatever you're thinking. We want to hear your comments, your questions, your insights, your hot takes, your opinions. Whatever you got, we want to hear it. We want to make this show as interactive, as exciting as possible. Now, one easy way to do that, if you're on YouTube, you can use the Super Chat feature. To use the Super Chat feature, all you have to do is click the $ at the bottom of the chat box, type in your message there, send that in, and this guarantees that your message gets on the air, gets read live. It's also just a great way to support our channel, support what we're trying to build here at GSMC. We couldn't do what we do without your ongoing support, and we're so grateful to have you here as part of our community at the GSMC Podcast Network. Now, let's dive into Greg Sankey. Greg Sankey, man, I get it. It was only a matter of time before the inevitable happened, before somebody pushed him too far and he kind of lashed out. The desperate lash out, the defeated will try anything. Not this time, though. Not in this specific situation. Greg Sankey opened the SEC spring meetings on Monday with a near 45-minute press conference, most of which was kind of dominated by questions of the future of the college football playoff. What else would it be? Come on, we know what the story's going to be. And one kind of interesting thing he said, though, too, in his comments was that he said the SEC has no preference for a college football playoff format, but that he expected it to be a major topic of conversation during these next 3 days of meetings with athletic directors, coaches, university presidents, officials, the whole gaggle, the whole crew. This is going to be one of the big conversations. I kind of thought it was interesting, though, that he said that they don't have a preferred format right now. At first, when I heard that, I was kind of like, I don't know. I think that's maybe not true. But the more I think about it, the more I can kind of see what Greg Sankey's saying. And his frustration really kind of boiled over, and I think that kind of showed what he was trying to get at, to where he was basically saying, hey, we're not the ones pushing for all this change. Yes, we're one of the lead decision makers here, but we're not the ones that wanted to expand the playoff. We're not the ones that pushed for all this change. We're not the ones that tried to incorporate more into everything. We're not the ones that's pushing automatic bids, automatic buys. We're not doing that. The Big Ten is right now, but that's not us. Greg Sankey kind of said, one of his quotes was, I don't need lectures from others about the good of the game. Especially when, in his mind, this is the guy that's been working all along to save the Big 12 and the ACC. He was the one, if you look at it, that not long ago convinced his presidents in the SEC that a college football playoff was in the best interest of college football. Not an SEC playoff, not just their conference. A big one across the entire sport that was best for the interest of the game. Even though a lot of the SEC presidents were kind of unsure of college football playoff expansion in the first place. And he's the one working along with Tony Petitti right now from the Big Ten that was given all of the power in the college football playoff. Everybody else signed off and said, yep, here you go, Greg. Here you go, Tony. We're giving you the power. We're giving you the authority to kind of make these decisions. And including the Big 12 and the ACC commissioners who are now kind of complaining about it. So if you look at that, if you look at kind of their comments last week in the ACC and the Big 12, it seems like it's just kind of poking the bear. Just going at Greg Sankey, and there was going to be a response at some point. Greg Sankey, look at where we are. We're on the verge of the college football playoff becoming a 16-team format beginning in 2026. The desperate have now decided to speak up. Commissioners of the ACC, the Big 12, whose leagues aren't going to get similar access, more to that kind of point, similar revenue to the SEC, the Big Ten, those commissioners made statements to CBS Sports last week that looked kind of coordinated. Both said in part that the, quote, best interest of the sport was at the forefront of every decision that they've made relative to the college football playoff. That kind of didn't really sit well with Greg Sankey, the guy who was asked by the college football playoff board of directors to kind of build the first team, 12-team playoff years ago, then watched petty politics pretty much just keep delaying it for months and months and months. The ACC's part in the delay, that old alliance that was talked about with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 before the Pac-12 dissolved, ACC was involved in that. That was supposedly in the best interest of the sport too. The Big 12 and the ACC raiding the Mountain West in the American Athletic Conference. That was in the best interest of the sport as well, in their minds, in the ACC, the Big 12's minds. Greg Sankey kind of said, you can issue your press statements. I'm actually looking for ideas to move us forward right now. The SEC didn't need the playoff. That was for the good of the game. Sankey wasn't done there, though. He said, and this is basically for the first time since he was named commissioner 10 years ago in 2015, he kind of spoken with forceful tones. He kind of just unloaded here. He said for 10 years, he has spoken as the conference, really as the commissioner. It's kind of always been we, not me. But this was me. This was Greg Sankey talking as Greg Sankey. And he kind of said, one of his quotes was, you want to go inside what it's like to sit in this role. I think about the responsibility I have to our member institutions. I think about the rest of college football more broadly all the time. I'm open to ideas. He was discussing the college football playoff. He said, I'm open to ideas. There's just not a lot incoming. My phone's not ringing off the hook with, hey, here's another way to look at it. He's kind of saying, we're open for business. If you want to change this college football playoff format, give me another idea. Give me something that can work with how the landscape's going in this whole college football industry. It's kind of trending one way. Greg Sankey's saying, give me alternatives. Give me potentials to discuss, to bring to my member institutions, to bring to those decision makers. Let's give some other ideas. If you don't like this format, then say something. Then give me an alternative. Give me a different plan. That's pretty much what he's asking for right now. And this is Sankey. It's just more than the ACC and the Big 12 looking for more access. It's more than the current model. It's about Greg Sankey hearing explicitly one thing from presidents, athletic directors of these institutions, of these universities, and then dealing with the rest of college football on a completely different level. There's multiple layers to this job, and I, for one, do not envy what Greg Sankey has been trying to do and kind of reshape this entire college football landscape. And frankly, his presidents right now, they make all the decisions related to football. When it comes down to it, that's who's making decisions around these football programs. The presidents of these universities, of these institutions, none of them are really happy about how the college football playoff process, how this kind of format is starting to shake out. About the format, about allowing schools who they kind of believe are just hanging on to the SEC's financial coattails to kind of get into the playoff. If you look at it, last year, Indiana makes the college football playoff after beating just one team with a winning record. SMU makes the college football playoff after losing its conference championship. When Texas is a top 3 team, they have to play and they still have to play a first-round game. Tennessee is a top 7 team. They have to play a first-round game on the road. That doesn't look good for the SEC. If you're the SEC, looking at last year's playoff, it's not conducive to you. It's not helping you. If you're Greg Sankey, your main purpose is to help that conference and the institutions that are members of the Southeastern Conference. Georgia, Texas kind of getting messed over in last year's college football playoff. That's not conducive to the overall health of the SEC. We're really not that far removed from 2021, when the SEC kind of had their idea of having their own playoff, having their own playoff separate of the rest of the college football world, in the market for those games would be incredible. If you're looking at a TV deal for a potential SEC tournament, it would be really groundbreaking money. In other words, SEC, if they won, they can actually take their ball and go home. It's something that they have in their back pocket. Yeah, you don't really want to pull that out, but in theory, that's a card that Greg Sankey has where if he wants, he can say, you know what, we're going to walk away from this. We don't like this deal that we've kind of helped shape. We're going to walk away from this. These meetings, though, kind of began with the backdrop of the SEC's seemingly never-ending move to 9 conference games. More now, it's kind of a financial lifeboat. And the SEC, or the ACC, the Big 12, their commissioners kind of having their own statements this week, really probably wasn't the best time for them to kind of poke at Greg Sankey at the SEC and the Big 10. Greg Sankey kind of said, if you're really doing all this for the best of the game, all right, come talk to me then, or else don't shoot shots across the bow. That's kind of the vibe I was picking up from Greg Sankey and kind of his comments in his initial presser on Monday. We're going to see how this all shakes out. Will these kind of relationships keep deteriorating? Will they be able to come together and agree on a format for 2026 and beyond? What's going to happen? We're not really sure, but it's pretty clear that Greg Sankey is not super happy right now with kind of the entire landscape of the college football playoff and where it could potentially go. So right now, we're going to take another quick break on the show. When we come back, we're going to look at some ACC programs and look at strength of schedule. Some programs that may have an easier slate this year, others that are going to have a rough stretch for a while. But we're going to dive into that when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.